Greetings. About a week ago, there was a posting on X platform relating to the Kona Blue documents. And every time that the Kona Blue documents are posted, or a lot of times it seems to me, it's treated like this is for the first time that we're hearing about it. That is not the case. The Kona Blue documents were first posted by the AARO office back in March of 2024. That's the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. I don't know that they made a big announcement at the time. I don't recall that or much of an explanation. I recall just a set of files basically added to the government webpage and then left there. But it caused a lot of discussion at the time. And now more than a year and a half later, they have gone through several waves of attention, it seems to me. And there are still more researchers that are examining them closely, which I think is a very, very good thing. Now, what makes the Kona Blue documents important is, I think, what they reveal about this still, I think, poorly understood attempt inside the Department of Homeland Security to create a special access program tied to UFOs or tied to UAP-related work. We'll put it that way. And when you put all the pieces together that we get from different threads about Kona Blue, I'll talk about these. What you really get is a glimpse of a program that, was proposed, partially structured, and then shut down really before it could take shape. And then when you put that within the larger history of the AAWSAP program, that is the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, and then the AATIP program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, and then all the internal struggles over access to legacy materials. You see this whole thing as a synthesis. I think it gives a very clear picture of what we are dealing with, and that is what I want to walk through with you today. So I'll just start by talking a little bit about the documents, and then we'll do some analysis. So this is the front page of the Kona Blue document. It's actually a cover page from the Department of Homeland Security, which just simply confirms that Kona Blue was a prospective special access program. That is a PSAP. And it was active, it was terminated in February of 2012. So, and DHS then stated that all the records on it were declassified. So that's it. That's the cover letter. Pretty straightforward. But there's a lot behind all of this. So first of all, a prospective special access program means that DHS was asked to begin the bureaucratic process of building an ultra-secure compartment. You don't just create SAPs for out of thin air willy-nilly. Well, maybe they're doing that more and more these days, but that's not supposed to be the case for a special access program. These are created when senior leadership believes that a program involves material or capabilities that require the highest levels of protection. So we're talking like nuclear systems or stealth platforms, advanced intelligence operations, and yes, many, many times over the years, we've heard SAPs in connection with UFOs or UAP. That last has not been officially confirmed by the United States government, but this attempt for Kona Blue, that is a confirmed, explicitly UAP-related attempt to create a special access program. So the Kona Blue letter doesn't explicitly state that it's UFO-related. That doesn't mention that, doesn't mention UAP or aliens, but it was, and I'll get into that in just a moment. The rest of the Kona Blue material, however, just reads like it's a full proposal package aimed to convince DHS to start up this new special access program. And the way it's described in here is basically to handle disruptive Homeland Security relevant technologies, framed very broadly as advanced aerospace and related anomalies. So Kona Blue is going to be like this multi-component program with various divisions and well-defined roles within it. One of them was a medical division that was to be tasked with organizing data into a threat analysis based on medical findings. which would include like deaths and injuries from interactions with, quote, advanced aerospace vehicles, AAVs, and also like medical injuries from other anomalies and physiological effects on family members and the like. By the way, advanced aerospace vehicles is the closest this document gets to discussing UFOs or UAP. Another interesting thing about the proposal here is that it offered a physical footprint, a ready-to-use Las Vegas facility consisting of several buildings, a large laboratory, and a SCIF, that is a sensitive compartmented information facility, already in the accreditation process, all under private ownership and available for immediate government use. Didn't state who, but we know who this is for. This is certainly refers to the Robert Bigelow complex that was used during the AAWSAP era. Robert Bigelow was the main contractor for AAWSAP, and clearly the Kona Blue document is referring to that. The packet also tried to address DHS's leadership's questions about like funding and personnel and oversight. You don't really get the idea that the answers that it provides in this packet are totally complete or clear. Some of it seems vague. Maybe that's all that they could be. Ultimately, DHS rejected this proposal. It just said, we're not going to do this, and terminated the whole effort before it became operational. Now, a very interesting part of the Kona Blue packet is right at the end, and that is the SAP justification memo that was written in 2009 by the late Senator Harry Reid. So, and this is quite interesting. So this describes the relevant subject matter as involving exotic technologies, quantum mechanics, nuclear science, electromagnetic theory, gravities, thermodynamics, all of which had the potential to be used with catastrophic effects if it were compromised. So it is portrayed as exotic technology that could be extremely catastrophically dangerous to presumably the United States national security, maybe the world, and that this program required the establishment of a restricted special access program with very closely controlled access, strong measures to protect industry partners that would work within the program. So this is Reid writing about this in 2009. And now it's important to remember the special access program status of the AAWSAP program, which he was writing about here. That did not happen either. That was rejected. But taken at face value, you're seeing this is not the language of a simple threat identification office that was collecting sightings by pilots. This is the language of a program expecting to work with material or, let's just say, very engineering sensitive information and clearly related to UFOs, even though the memo never uses the word UFO or UAP, just talks about exotic technologies, catastrophic national security lists, and all of that. But the reality is that framework that Reid laid out was all part of the AAWSAP program, and it didn't disappear when AAWSAP ended either. It reappeared in the internal logic of AATIP, its successor program, and then again in the blueprint that resurfaced in the DHS attempt that we know as Kona Blue. Different agencies, different years, but the same people relied on the same assumptions and the same SAP model, which tells us that the insiders pushing these efforts believed they were dealing with something technologically extraordinary and which required the highest level of protection that the system could offer. Now, this becomes very clear when we go to the webpage of the AARO Historical Review, Volume 1. So as I was saying earlier, the DHS Reid's SAP memo never state UAP or UFO outright. AARO does explicitly explain what the people behind Kona Blue actually believed they were doing. AARO states that Kona Blue was a proposed UAP recovery and reverse engineering program. That its architects or its creators believed the U.S. government possessed off-world technology. And it says a few other things about the Kona Blue proposal, all of which is interesting, and that these same individuals had been part of the earlier AAWSAP AATIP activities going back to 2009. So that's all in the AARO historical review. So that lays it out very, very clearly. So we have a split between two layers of language, essentially. You have the DHS document and the SAP memo, basically kind of generic, very scientific, exotic, technology framing and all of that. But the AARO's review gives an explicit statement, several statements actually, about UAP, off-world craft, reverse engineering. Now, the AARO historical review mentions all of this to dismiss it and state, well, this wasn't anything real. This is their mistaken belief. But nonetheless, it's important to emphasize there's an acknowledgement that the people behind the Kona Blue proposal did explicitly link this to UFOs and aliens. We'll just put that right out there, and alien technology and reverse engineering and the like. So when you put this together, you're really seeing a very basic truth, that the Kona Blue packet was written in the coded language of black programs, but the people pushing it were aiming for a UAP recovery and exploitation program. And that is not speculation. This is AARO's own description of it. Now, let's go a little bit further with this. When AAWSAP ended inside the Defense Intelligence Agency, the story did not stop. That was around 2009, 2010. AARO confirmed that the AAWSAP supporters attempted to find this new institutional home. They approached other agencies. DHS became one of the candidates. And this is where Luis Elizondo's statements are worth remembering. In his book, Imminent, which he wrote a couple of years ago, he didn't mention Kona Blue by name. He didn't need to, but he did say that there were attempts to relocate the AATIP-AWSAP mission into another agency once the DoD support weakened, which it did, and that he had direct knowledge of a DHS-linked follow-on effort, that he was consulted and confirmed it was real and it was documented. So those remarks are clearly consistent with what AARO admits and what the Kona Blue document reflects. So it's like having another layer of support, an external witness, essentially, that is in total harmony with the released material. So by 2011, 2012, AAWSAP's core people were trying to get this program into DHS under a new special access program structure. DHS did approve the initial PSAP paperwork, but then killed the program within months. And again, they supposedly saw no merit, no materials were transferred, no UAP-related activity occurred, and the effort was terminated before it became operational. Again, from the outside, it just looks like a program that never got off the ground, but from the inside, what you see is that this was just another attempt to revive a classified UAP exploitation effort that was blocked before it took shape. When you step back, you start to see a pattern. AAWSAP ends in the DIA, within the Defense Intelligence Agency, in the Department of Defense. Certain personnel still believe legacy materials exist. They seek access through official channels. They run into resistance. They try to build a new special access program elsewhere at DHS. That effort is shut down. And then 10 to 15 years later, documents surface showing what they were trying to do. So the Kona Blue packet is basically the bureaucratic footprint of that failed attempt. It's not the whole story, but it is, you could say it's the trace that was left behind. Now, here is where I want to move from the documents to a deeper analysis of what things look like. So for years, there have been consistent accounts from insiders, researchers, and people directly connected to AAWSAP that the program tried to obtain materials believed to be held by a major aerospace contractor, most often associated with Lockheed Martin. So the plan, allegedly, we shall say, was to bring these materials into a government-managed environment where they could be analyzed under AAWSAP authority. So according to these accounts, the attempt was blocked by Glenn Gaffney. He was a senior figure in the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology. Now, this story has circulated for a few years now. It has been repeated by individuals that I believe are credible, and structurally it makes perfect sense. If such material existed, CIA would view it as a national technical asset under their purview. They would have clear incentive to maintain control so that any attempt by DIA or a contractor like Bigelow Aerospace to gain access would trigger a bureaucratic veto. The Director of Science and Technology would have the authority to issue that veto. Now, none of this is in the Kona Blue packet. None of this is in the AARO review. But the pattern revealed by those documents, repeated attempts to stand up SAP structures to gain access, followed by termination or denial, this matches the logic of an interagency struggle. So if AAWSAP was denied access within DoD and CIA, it makes sense that the same individuals would try to circumvent those barriers by creating a new special access program inside DHS. That could be a great opportunity. It would be free of all of the historical turf entanglements that had existed, at least hopefully. Didn't turn out that way. Kona Blue, though, does look like that was the attempt, which failed. So this doesn't prove the existence of recovered materials, but it does highlight how intense and how long-standing this internal conflict appears to have been. And in fact, in my view, it goes back many, many decades and generations prior. You see indications of this throughout the original 1950s literature on this subject by people like retired Marine Corps Major Donald Kehoe, who talks a lot about the internal struggles between the various services and the arguments over what should we tell the public, do we need to keep this secret, and much more. Kehoe's books to this day are still a great window into that world. So anyway, where does this leave us? I keep thinking that we're in an era of a kind of disclosure happening within a declining empire. And that declining empire is an important piece to this whole thing. It's almost like disclosure by erosion. In other words, the U.S. national security apparatus today is not the one we had in the 1950s or the 1960s. There's greater technology today. There's a lot that is available today that wasn't back then. But back then, I will suggest that apparatus had the coherence to maintain a much more airtight secrecy than today. Today, institutions are becoming fractured. Public trust is collapsing. Oversight, at least congressional attempts at oversight, have stepped up of late. Whistleblowers are increasingly feeling a little more protected than they would have in the past. Leaks are becoming more common, if not an everyday occurrence. They are certainly becoming more common. And you can see that there are competing bureaucratic factions that no longer agree on how to handle this problem. In that environment, I don't think secrets are going to hold up the way they once did. They're going to seep out through little cracks here and there. A little reluctant disclosure here, or a little mismatched narrative there. Mismatched memos or documents like the Kona Blue and the one on AARO's review on their website. This is, I think, how an old secrecy system starts to come apart. It's not going to come apart all at once. It seems to be coming apart piece by piece. So Kona Blue didn't tell us everything, but it did tell us something important, that there were multiple attempts in multiple agencies to create special access program structures around UAP-related technology. They were blocked redirected, or shut down. But they left paper trails. And those paper trails are reaching daylight. So when you think of disclosure, sometimes we like to think of a decision that the government, if there is such a thing as the government, some monolithic entity, that it's a decision that the government makes. But really, I think disclosure by erosion might perhaps be a little more accurate. So the documents, again, they don't give us a full accounting, but they do show how the pieces were arranged and who was moving them. And that alone tells us more than maybe anyone expected from when these documents came out. I think the rest will come in time, one document at a time, the way these things usually seem to do. Well, if you like this video, please do check the like button, share it, subscribe to my channel. Leave your own comments or your analysis down below. I do read them. I will read these. And as always, thank you for your support, and let's keep fighting the good fight. Later.